Welcome, ninth graders. If you are looking for the perfect introduction to your very first biology chapter, you are in the exact right place. Welcome to this explainer. I know starting high school science can feel a little, well, overwhelming, but honestly, just take a deep breath. We're going to break down these core concepts step by step and totally figure this out together. Let's just jump right in. Here's our game plan for today. First, we'll be defining life. Then we'll look at the branches of the tree, and finally, we'll zoom way out for the grand scale of organization. So, Section 1, defining life. What exactly is biology anyway? It's actually kind of fascinating how the word itself literally hands us the answer. Biology isn't just some random made-up term. It actually comes from two ancient Greek roots. Bios literally means live or life, and logos means thought or reasoning. I love this because it shows us that biology isn't just about endlessly memorizing facts out of a textbook. It's literally the logic, the thought, and the reasoning behind life itself.
Now, while life is pretty tough to define in just one simple sentence, scientists actually look for a very specific set of functions. Honestly, I'd pause right here and just grab a screenshot, because these processes, they form the ultimate checklist for life. We're talking about digestion, respiration, metabolism, and movement. Then there's growth and development. And rounding it out, we've got excretion, reproduction, and irritability, which, by the way, is just a super fancy way of saying an organism responds to its environment. Basically, if this entire checklist is happening, boom, you are looking at biology in action.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, branches of the tree. How do we categorize all these specialized study areas? So, biology is so huge, it has to be divided into three massive divisions. Take a magnificent lion, for instance. That represents zoology, which is the study of animals. But then you have this entirely invisible microscopic world of bacteria, and that represents microbiology. And hey, even though we're focusing heavily on animals and microbes right now, there's a third major division that's just as absolutely crucial, and that is botany, the study of plants. To make sense of all this, scientists slice these massive divisions down into much more specific branches. Morphology, for example, looks at the external form. What does it look like on the outside? Anatomy, on the other hand, looks at internal parts. Think of what a surgeon does. Then, histology zooms way in to study the tiny tissues, while physiology looks at how all those parts actually function together. And finally, taxonomy. That's essentially the rule book for grouping and naming literally everything. So think about it like this. If a doctor is examining your internal layout, they're using anatomy, but when they check your heart rate to see how it's working, that's physiology. Which brings us to our final act, Section 3, the grand scale of organization. We are going all the way from invisible atoms to the entire biosphere. Let's start at the very, very bottom. Level 1, the atomic level. So all matter is made of elements, which are composed of tiny atoms. Now, while there are well over 100 elements out there in nature, life is amazingly exclusive. Only 16 are considered true bioelements. And get this, just 6 of them are the absolute basics of life. We're talking carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus. These 6 atoms are the literal foundational building blocks of your entire body. Okay, let's zoom out just a little bit to level 2. Atoms really don't like to hang out alone, so they bind together to form molecules. And when these molecules are part of a living system, we call them biomolecules. Take a phospholipid structure, for example. It's a complex biomolecule, and it's built from a massive variety of those exact same basic atoms we just talked about. Zooming out a bit further brings us to level 3, the cellular level. When biomolecules work together in a very, very specific mixture of substances, they form what's known as protoplasm. And when that protoplasm works together as a cohesive unit, boom, we have a cell. The cell is the most basic, fundamental unit of living organisms. This right here is where life truly begins to take shape. Moving right up to level 4, we hit the tissue level. Because just like atoms, cells generally don't like working alone either. When a group of very similar cells organizes to perform a common shared function, they officially become a tissue. If you look at epithelial tissue, for example, it's really just a tightly packed group of cells all working together as one unified layer. Next up, level 5. This is where we get organs and organ systems. Different types of tissues will actually arrange themselves to form a working organ, like your lungs. But lungs don't just work in total isolation, right? They partner up with your windpipe and other specialized parts to form a whole organ system. In this case, the respiratory system, all functioning perfectly together just so you can take a breath. Which brings us to level 6, the organism level. Let's bring that magnificent lion back into the picture. A lion is a multicellular organism, but what is he really? Honestly, he is just a highly coordinated collection of every single thing we've built up so far. He's millions of atoms, forming biomolecules which form cells, combining into tissues, building his organs, running his organ systems. And when all of those systems function as one perfectly coordinated unit, you get these spectacular organisms standing right in front of you.
Now we're going to zoom out way beyond the individual. Level 7 is the population level. When you take a group of the exact same species, like a whole pride of lions, and put them together living in one specific habitat, you've got a population. They look similar, they act similar, and they can interbreed to produce fertile offspring. Let's zoom out again to level 8, the community level. A community forms when multiple, entirely different populations interact in the exact same environment. So if we introduce zebras into the lion's habitat, those populations are definitely interacting. Now, maybe not in a way the zebra's super thrilled about, but hey, this classic predator-prey relationship is exactly the kind of thing that defines a biological community.
And finally, we are executing our massive final zoom out. After communities form ecosystems by interacting with their physical environments, we arrive at the ultimate level. Level 9, the biosphere. This is literally the part of the Earth where all life exists. It encompasses absolutely everything. Every single atom, cell, lion, and zebra we just talked about. It is the absolute grand stage of biology. Okay, let's do a super quick recap, because this sequence is the beautiful, logical backbone of biology, and I can almost guarantee you it's going to show up on your exams. We go from atom to molecule, to cell, to tissue, to organ, to organism, to population, to community, to ecosystem, and finally to biosphere. Memorizing this specific, exact order gives you the absolute perfect map of life.
Just think about this for a second. You are a highly complex, multicellular organism made up of billions of cells living right now within this incredibly vast biosphere. You are quite literally an active part of its biological hierarchy. So as we wrap up this explainer on Chapter 1, I want you to ask yourself, which branch of biology are you most curious to explore next? Are you drawn to the invisible, microscopic universe inside you, or the massive interacting ecosystems all around you? Keep that curiosity totally alive, and I'll see you in the next explainer.